You can sort of have a, cordial relationship with people and be warm, but it's those intimate, direct connections. So out of these initial dialogues, there was a kind of consensus, and then there was a tremendous energy that was generated, but there wasn't funding to continue. So Dan came up with a model whereby we could launch the dialogue here in Albuquerque. So I came as one of the participants as Moonhawk's teaching partner in 1998, and was immediately brought into a kind of transformative field where it must be what people used to feel back in the days when you had a really good powwow. And that's what Danny used to talk about. He called it, powwow time. Because the sense of community, the sense of connection and excitement was really amazing. And the level of sharing and love between these people who have been divided for so long. That was what was so wonderful, is that you felt like it touched me in my heart, because I think this is a wound that all of us carry, and white people have our own special burden in this, that I think, for me, what it got me over on a personal level was what we call exoticization. That is, the whole Pocahontas syndrome, that Native American indigenous people are in this pure, pristine state, and that they had it all and we lost it, but I didn't necessarily subscribe to it. It may have been a little bit more enlightened in my thinking. I think I still had a lot of those stereotypes that we have until first contact. So for me, that was my real deep, intense first contact with Native America, other than some field work that I'd done on the Sioux language. That was a revelation, that was a gift, that was a deep healing for me personally, to feel that I was helping to do something to move the conversation along from where it's been stuck for all these hundreds of years. So that was like just this amazing honor where you, at certain times and places in your life, you feel like, I'm supposed to be here. There's nowhere else to be. There's nothing more important. And the sense of time expanded, where you're like, well, how are we really going to get into all this deep stuff? And you start to relax into the presence of the dialogue, and then things begin to shift, and you realize that there is always enough time for what's most important. Oh, it just was liberating. We actually don't have to sweat it so much, we can let the process take us where it needs to go. And so that was kind of like climbing into the whitewater raft and let's see where this puppy's going to go. And so through the course of these dialogues, the whole worlds would be born and die, in the space between each of the sharings. And it becomes a kind of deep, empathetic connection, because most of the time you're sitting there silent in these dialogues, which is so different from most of the testosterone-driven, look at how wonderful I am kind of approach to academic conferences. And that's very seductive and inviting, and it continually amazed me, and with kind of every twist and turn. And so then, in the case of my relationship with Moonhawk, this became a whole other wing of our work together. And so we used the film in our teaching, the language of spirituality, and would continue to draw back on these examples and bring them back into our work. So in 2003, out of this work, I organized a conference at the American Anthropological Association in Chicago with 5 presenters on the work of Benjamin Lee Whorf, who had been systematically vilified, as I mentioned earlier, by suggesting that the experience of reality that we have has something to do with the language that we speak. And so in this conference, I brought together people from different disciplines to assess the legacy of Whorf. This was in 2003. And the good news there was that Whorf was back in a big way, and that the dark ages in Whorfian studies had begun to dissipate, primarily because the people who had been beating up on him for so long were shown to be charlatans and people who had never actually read his work. And a deep lesson here that I'd like to bring home for people is that you should study the people who are taboo, who have the dangerous ideas, who are controversial, and you should make it a point of studying all the people that your professors don't want you to study, because often they carry the seeds for the more radical kind of thinking that's actually required right now. Native American languages, with their emphasis on verbs and on process and on flux, do not lend themselves to the abstracting logic of the Western Indo-European mind. What a wonderful thing that's been, it's brought us to all of this, and what a terrible thing that's been, it's brought us to all of this. So, in the case of the Native American logic, it's one that is rooted in the vital world and in attention to process and to an intimacy with the more than human dimensions of experience. And at this juncture, that's powerful medicine for the planet, for people generally. And it's medicine that can take the form of heart medicine. What a wonderful thing to be participating in this healing after so much blood under the bridge. These remnants of First Peoples are, in a sense, keepers of ancient wisdom that's been hidden from us and occluded owing to the hegemony of the Indo-European logic. So it's an opening, and it's an opening in which I think everyone is welcome. There's a way in which we can say that we're all indigenous people. We have a program at our institute that we used to call the Recovery of Indigenous Mind, which was about helping alienated white people, mostly, to activate within their own roots and histories and genealogies the sources of indigenous wisdom that allowed their people to thrive and survive in the first place. So I think the opportunity is for us to lift each other up and to work on the head magic as well as the heart magic. And I think that's a really important opportunity that's in front of us right now. And these conferences, these dialogues are exploring that, just in the format and the freewheeling nature of how it happens, and the people that come together. So I feel like I don't want to make too much of it, because we're just a bunch of people sitting around in a room in Albuquerque, really. But by the same token, that's how worlds are remade. It's exactly in rooms with people working it out that we forge some solutions, some responses, capacities. Take it back out in the world. Come back next year. I bought a house in Sonoma County in 1988, and I found myself over the last 20 years becoming indigenous to that place. It's like being on a first name basis with nature. There are these beautiful little golden finches that I feed, and I've gotten to know them individually. And there are these hummingbirds. There's one I call him Pushy, because he tries to push all the other hummingbirds away. And you start to see the intricate dynamics. I just find that so nurturing and so connecting. And so that's just become a really important part of my life. I can't imagine not being in that kind of relationship. And it takes a commitment to cut through it all, because we're such a rootless people. And I'm a fifth generation Californian, but I don't think that my people ever had much of the luxury of feeling like that they were part of this place, because so much of it was just they were dirt farmers and so forth, and it was just a struggle for survival. So it's like, by the luck of being in this generation, I have a chance to to reconnect. I ended up in a more intimate connection with nature, and then also having a capacity to really collaborate and have genuine partnership with people. It allows me to connect with the larger we that's underneath the me. And that's the wind beneath my wings right now, I think.